everybody, my name's Simon Morris. I work for Avon's product development department here in the UK, and you join me today on the beautiful River Avon here at Stratford on the famous Lucy's Mill pool. What's happening at the moment is autumn's just cutting in. There's a few leaves on the floor, the nights are pulling out, it's getting that little bit colder and it's starting to feel like pike and perch weather for me. So what we're going to do today is target those, hopefully using lightweight jigging and lure fishing. The river's very clear, the levels look good, and we haven't had rain for quite a while now, so it might be a bit tough, but then hey, it always is tough when you're fishing this time of year. So what we're going to do, before we get down to the nitty-gritty of the fishing, let's have a look at some of the tackle we're going to use today. So on sessions like this is the kind of tackle I like to use. Primarily we're trying to keep things very light, very compact. It's a roving approach. We're going to try and cover a fair amount of water here today. And my rod of choice is the Berkeley Pulse. This is quite a small, quite lightweight, 6 foot 8 gram lure rod. It's IM7 carbon, which means it has a very, very sensitive tip, but a lot of recovery speed, which means you get good accurate casting with light lures, and also you get a lot of strength down here. So if you do contact the bonus pike that we're hoping for, you're going to get plenty enough power there to deal with that. When you're using light outfits like this, everything's about balance. You must make sure everything's all balanced together. So I've chosen to go with that, the Avon fixed spool spinning reel. This is a 7 ball bearing reel, alloy bodied, loaded with fire line on this occasion. And critically, as part of this is its carbon drag system, which is extremely smooth, well proven, well tested now. And in situations with the lighter braids and lighter lures, if you do hook a big fish, which is what we're hoping to do today, then you need to be able to rely on the drag system on your reel. That really covers the business end of the tackle, but there are a few other essentials that you should always bring along on a session like this, and we'll run through those now. So let's have a look at those other little bits and pieces that it's good to bring on a session like this. I always bring small folding unhooking mat. Doesn't have to be expensive item, but just where we're going to be coming across concrete banks, pathways, key headings, it's only fair on the fish, should we catch one, that we need to look after them properly. Obviously, unhooking gear when we're going to encounter pike, zander, perch. Carry a protective glove, very simple little glove, and then a kit here that has both forceps, cutters and pliers in, so if I have to cut any hooks out of badly hooked fish, all the information and all the kit is here that we need to do that with. Last but not least, selection of lures for the day. Small rubber baits. I particularly favour the little shad style patterns like this available from Berkeley, and even right down to these tiny little ones here that hopefully will be perfect for the perch today. Also there's some power bait worms in there, because when perch are feeding hard, sometimes all they want is a worm. We've got those covered too, but basically one small box, that will do me for the whole day. Okay then, we've took you through the kind of setup that we typically use for a session like this, both the rod and the reel, and the essential items that you need to bring along as well. What I'd like to do is move on to the kind of swims that I'm going to target on a session like this and the reasons why. First one's first, and probably the biggest and most obvious feature in the river is the bridge. The structure, the legs that support the bridge, fantastic holding areas for bait fish. Traditionally, perch, very well known to associate themselves with any structure that's in the river. So obviously I'm going to be starting in this area and looking to fish close up against the pilings of the bridge. So it's going to have to be accurate casting, up against the piles, and work the lures away and try and cover the area all around those, because the fish will sit on every side of those, and especially on the back end in the tail part of the current where there's a little slack formed, they'll sit in there and ambush the prey from there. What we then do is we'll walk along and never ignore the margins as you walk. I'll quite often literally walking, trolling if you like, and just tow the lure down the margins. Some of the margin spots here are reputed to be 10, 11, 12 foot deep, and the fish will really come up from the bottom there and hit a lure that's twitched across the heads. So don't be afraid to walk along the river dragging a lure. You might look a bit silly, but it's worth a few bonus fish every year. So the next area is, and quite an obvious area here, is the big whirlpool. It's a daunting piece of water when you first approach it. There's knowing where to cast, but what I try and do is target the area between the fast water and the slack, or the crease as it's more commonly known. What tends to happen here is it creates a kind of back eddy or swirling effect where a lot of the bait fish will sit out of the current waiting for the food to come to them, and obviously in turn the kind of predators that we're looking for will be targeting those. They'll be sitting in a similar areas. It's very rarely that I've caught predators, you know, right in the teeth of the flow, so try and target both sides in the slack water. And again, don't ignore your feet. The flow pushes right through up against your own bank, could bring a lot of food through, and you'll find a lot of bait fish there. Other obvious features are the trees, looking very pretty at this autumn time of year, but what we're interested in is the overhang. There's some nice areas here. Again, low fast casts here you're going to need, maybe even skip the baits in underneath this cover. Predator fish, again, they need cover. They're going to be ambushing from under these overhangs. So again, I'll be looking to target these sort of areas, trying to get the baits in as tight as I can underneath there to where the fish are going to be lying. Moving on, the last area is probably, you might call them dead arms or dead ends, areas of slack water, quite often ignored areas because they look a bit stagnant sometimes. It's where all the flotsam and jetsam tends to accumulate. But again, this is where a lot of the foodstuffs will end up. They tend to be weedier, a little bit siltier sometimes. And what I'm looking for here is reed margins, again overhanging trees. Quite often this will be where you'll find lilies, and at this time of year you've got dying lily beds. All of this will be providing cover for the bait fish. So again, perch, pike, zander, those kinds of fish are going to be in these areas because that's basically where their food is. Okay, so here's an example of the kind of fish you can expect on a day fishing like we're having today. Normally be expecting 2 or 3 of these today, maybe even 6 or more, along with a few bonus perch and maybe a zander. Cracking little fish, not very big, but great fun on the lightweight rods that we showed you earlier. Lightweight braids and lightweight jigs, cracking sport. Well, let's get them back in and let's hope we can get something a little bit bigger.